Parshas Mishpatim Rishon. Pasuk starts, it says, Ve'ila Mishpatim, Asher Tasam Mifneim, and these are the Mishpatim, the ordinances that you should set before them. So Rashi, Ve'ila Mishpatim Koma, B'Shenemar Eila, Pasa Sadishenim. Why the Torah says these, so it separates from what has been previously stated. Ve'ila, when it has the Vav HaMesiv, Mesiv Al Dishenim, it adds to the previously stated. Ma Dishenim Misinai, Afeila Misinai, which tells us that just like the Ten Commandments, as we said before, they were set by Har Sinai, also this parsha was set on Sinai. Now, why is the section dealing with the halachas, these halachas, next to the halachas of the Mizbeach? To tell us that you shall place the Sanhedrin adjacent to the Beis HaMikdash. Hashem tells Moshe, now, the Eibusher said, do not think I'll teach them this pedek of the halacha 2 or 3 times until they know it as it was taught. However, I'm not going to trouble myself that they should understand all the reasonings and manner of its explanation. So therefore, Hashem says, you shall set before them like a set table with food and prepare to eat from, in other words, a place before them. There has to be, you have to make it clear, like a Shulchan Aruch HaMuchan La'afel L'fnei Adam. The Fneim is a Rashi before them, but Lei L'fnei Goyim, but not before Goyim. Afili Yadaita B'din Echad Shehein Danan Eisen Kedin Yisrael. Even if they, the Goyim, judge a certain law similar to the Shulchan Aruch, Al Tiviyeu Ba'arkoi Shalem, do not bring to their courts a person who brings lawsuits before Goyim profanes the Eibusher's name and honors the name of idols to praise them. As it says, for now, like your rock is their rock, but yet our enemies judge us. When we let our enemies judge us, this is the testimony of our esteem of their Avodah Zarah. Okay, Pasuk Beis. When you buy a Eved Ivri, a Hebrew slave, Sheishanim Yaved, he shall work for 6 years, Uvashvi, and on the 7th year, Yitzhak Chav Shechinam, he shall go out to freedom without charge. So Rashi Kisik Eved Ivri, Eved Shu Ivri, which means a slave who he himself is a Hebrew. Or maybe, perhaps it means only a slave of a Hebrew. Eved Kanani Shalakachtim Yisrael, which means a Kanani servant whom bought from a Yid. And on this it says he shall work for 6 years. So how then can I apply the halachas of, and you shall bequeath him forever? Concerning one, a servant purchased from a non-Jew. But a servant purchased from a Yid, who's a goy, goes out after 6 years. That's what the pasuk says. Should your brother Ibrahim be sold to you? This is referring only to a Yid who sold as a slave. Should you buy from the hand of the Beis Din who sold him into slavery because of his theft? As it says, if he has no money, he shall be sold for his theft. But perhaps, maybe it means, the pasuk means, the person who sold himself because he was very, very poor, but if the Beis Din sold him, he doesn't go free after 6 years. So Rashi says, the pasuk says, and if your brother becomes poor besides you and is sold to you, one who sells oneself because of poverty. So what is the pasuk? What am I gaining? What does the pasuk teach me? Should I buy? In Beis Din, it's referring to somebody who is sold by the Beis Din. Rashi says the chayru is for freedom. Pasuk Gimel. In Begapi Yavai, Begapi Yitzi. If he comes alone the 7th Ivri, he goes out alone. In Baal Ishahu, if he is married, B'yatzi Ishta Imai, if he's a married man, he shall go out with them. So Rashi Begapi Yavai, which means Shalai Haya Nasu Isha, he was not married. Kitagomai Im B'lechudai, as the Targum says, Im B'lechudai. Ulashin Gabi B'knafov. Begapi means with his skirt. Shalai Ba'ela Kameshu, which means the skirt means that he came only with as he was. along with his clothing, in the skirt of his garment. Rashi says, it teaches us that if he was not married at first, his master may not give him a Kanani maidservant to whom to have children. In Ba'al Isha, Yisraelis means a Yiddish woman. His wife shall go out with him. Now, who brought her in that she should go out? Rather, this teaches us that a person who purchases a Hebrew slave is also responsible for supporting his wife and his children. Pasuk Dal, if his master gave him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to the master, and he shall go out alone. So Rashi from here we learn that his master has the option to give this slave a Kanani maidservant in order to have slaves from her. Or perhaps this means only a Yiddish woman. That's what the Torah says, the woman and her children shall belong to her master. This is speaking only about a Kanani woman. For a Hebrew woman, she too goes out after 6 years. And even before 6 years, if she brings signs of puberty, she also goes out free. She never, like it says, your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman. That teaches us that a Hebrew maidservant also goes out free after 6 years. But if the slave says, I love my master, and as Ishti, I love my wife, as Bana and my children, I don't want to go for free. Zavashi, out free. As Ishti, Ashim the maidservant. So what should he do? His master shall bring him to the judges, and he shall bring him to the door, or to the doorpost, and his master shall bore in his ear, with this type of tool, called an awl, and he shall serve forever. So Rashi, the Beis Din, this refers to the Beis Din, but he sold to him, the slave, to him is his master. To the doorpost, the doorpost. I would think that the doorpost is a qualified place to have the piercing. Therefore, there it says, and he shall thrust it into his ear or onto his door. Now, so why does the Torah say Torah is comparing the door to the doorpost. Just as the doorpost is upright, in other words, it's attached to the house, otherwise it's not called a doorpost. So too, the door has to be upright. In his master shall bore his ear. Which ear? Hayimon is the right ear. Perhaps that means the left ear. So I learn a oizen eisen as Gzir Shova. It says over here also oizen. And it says also by the Meiser with the Mitzvah also that it should be on the right hand, right ear. So Allah. Yeah, it says that the on the right ear, the blood should be on the right ear. So so just to go over there means right, so too also Ezel means right. So Rashi asks, why was the ear chosen to be pierced out of all the organs of the body? So Rabbi Yechnan and Zakir says, Ezel Zeis, Shasham al Arsin out Tigniv, while the Vivanav Tiratzel. It says that the ear that here hurt, you shall not steal, and when it's stole shall be pierced. Now, what about somebody who sold himself? So on that person we say, the person who went and sold himself as a slave, which he heard, that Hashem says, you're my slaves and nobody else, and nevertheless he sold himself as a slave, so he deserves to be tiratza. Shimon used to interpret this in a beautiful manner, like a bundle of pearls, or a great amount of perfume in this way. So he says like this: Manishtana deles muzuzim bikolkein shababayis. Why were doors and doorposts singled out from all the fixtures in the house? So I'm going to deles and mezuzah. Shoyedim b'mitzrayim kishapasati ala mashi v'ashtem mezuzas v'amad k'dibni yisrael avodim avodahim v'lei avodim la'avodim all zev v'kon la'atzmei yirotzu b'fneim. And this he brings out that the door of the doorpost were witnesses in Mitzrayim when I passed over the lintel of the two doorposts. And I said, for your children of Israel are slaves to me and my slaves. But they are not slaves to slaves. And yet they went out and acquired for himself, and acquired for himself. He went out and acquired for himself a master. His ears shall be bored before them and everyone to see. And he shall serve forever. As Rashi says, doesn't mean forever. Rather, ala yevel, it means until yevel. Maybe it means forever. Therefore, the Torah says, each man and his family shall return. This teaches us that 50 years are called Eilam. Does not mean that he must serve him the entire 50 years. But it means he serves until Yevel comes. It doesn't matter whether it is near or far off, it's always till Yevel. Pasik Zayin. So that's in regards to Eved Ivri. Now he says, now if a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, they say to she shall not go free as the slaves go free. So what is this teaching us? When can a man sell his daughter as a slave, as a maidservant? Biktana custom medaber. The Torah is referring to a minor growth. So you would think that even if she develops signs of puberty, the father can still sell her. So I'm going to tell you now, if a girl was already applies her mainly if she's already sold, goes free with signs. So which we learn from here. She shall go out with nothing, without money, which means which we interpret this as signs of initial puberty. So does it not make sense that she, who is not sold, has initial signs of puberty, should not be sold at all? So therefore, we learn now that only when she has no signs of puberty. They say it's a Chitas avodim. Rashi says she shall not go free, that the slaves go free. Like the freedom of a Kanani slave who goes free because of the loss of a tooth or an eye. This maidservant does not go out by Shen and Ayin, if, let's say, her tooth or eye is knocked out. Either she works 6 years or or she has to bring signs of puberty. Whatever she has first, that's what makes her go free. Now, and her master will reimburse her for the value of her eye or the value of the tooth. Or perhaps the intention is, but she shall not go free as the male slave goes free, meaning after 6 years or Yevel. Therefore, the Torah tells us, should your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold? So just as a Hebrew woman and a Hebrew man goes out by Sheshin Yevel, so what does it mean that she not go out like Avodim? This means it should not go free with the loss of the tips of her limbs. You would think that the Ivri goes out by Rosh Avodim. Tam Limer, so just like as a Hebrew woman does not go free with the loss of her tips of her limbs, so too he does not go out with the loss of the tips of his limbs. If she's displeasing to her master, who did not designate her for himself, then shall she be enabled. She shall enable her to be redeemed. He shall enable her to be redeemed. He shall not rule over her to sell her to another man when he betrays her. Meaning that she does not please him to the extent that he would want to marry her. Who did not designate her, for he should have designated her and married her. and the paid money for the purchase is the money of her kiddush. From here, we see that Teda wants the master to designate her as marriage. And the Teda is alluding to us that he does not need to give another kiddush. And he shall enable her to be redeemed. The master should give her the opportunity to be redeemed and go free. For he too assists her in redemption. And what is the opportunity that he gives her? He deducts for her redemption according to the number of years that she worked for him, as if she had been hired to him and was not a slave. Case that how so? Let us say that he bought her for, let's say, a mana, 100 zuz, and she worked for him for 2 years. So we say, you knew that, we say to him, you knew that she would ultimately leave at the end of 6 years. So this means that you bought each year's work of 1/6 of a mana. And she worked for you for 2 years. Which equals 1/3 of a mana. So now accept 2/3 of a mana from her to pay for the remaining 4 years and let her leave you. Another person, which means that neither the master nor the father has the right to sell it to anyone else. When he betrays her, if the master comes to betray her, which means he's not fulfilled the commandment of designation, so too since they betrayed her and sold her to this one. And if he designates her to her son, he shall deal with her according to the laws of the daughters of Israel. Rashi, which means the master. It teaches us that the son also stands in the master's place. It designated her to him. And he does not require kiddushin again. Rather, he says to her, behold, you are designated to me with the money your father received. He can say to her, behold, you are designated with me with the money your father received of your value. Meaning sustenance, clothing, and marital relations. Pasuk Yud. If he takes another wife for himself, he shall not diminish her sustenance for clothing or marital relations. So Allah, in addition to her, from the maidservant whom he had already designated. Zuzainus is referring to food. Susa Kimashma or clothing. Einos is Tashmish. Pasuk Yidal. And if he does not do these 3 things for her, the Yatzachina mean custom, he shall go out free without charge, without payment of money. So if he does not do any of these 3 things for her. Now, what are these 3 things? He shall designate her for himself, or his son as a wife, or he should deduct from the money of her redemption, allow her to go free. But this one master designated her. This master designated her neither for himself nor for his son, and she cannot afford to redeem herself even after the deduction. She shall go out free. This text adds another means of freedom for his maidservant beyond what is provided for the male slaves. And now, now, what does that mean? Yatzachim tells us that she goes free when she shows initial signs of puberty, and she must stay with him until she develops these signs. If the years of 6 years come before, we learned out that she already goes free. She goes free. So why does the later say Yatzachim? That if the Sumanim come before the 6 years, she goes out free. She goes out. Maybe she only goes out when she's 12 and a half. That's why it says that obviously seated the Babras, which includes that she goes out by bagras. And if it would not say by both, I would think that she goes out by bagras. Therefore, both of them are stated so that the disputant has no opportunity to argue. Pasuk Yud Beis, Maki Ish V'Meis Meisimus. If one strikes a man so that he dies, he shall be put to death. So Rashi Maki Ish V'Meis, Kam Aksum Nemer Pashas Leitzin, or Masha Biyadi L'Farish Lama Kulam Afarish. Andrew says, some psukim have been written in the section dealing with murderers. I will explain what I'm able to explain about why these psukim are needed. Maki Ish V'Meis, one who strikes a man that he dies. The Lama Nemer, why does it say? Fish number of Ish Kiyaka Kol Nefesh Adam, because it says that a man strikes down any man, and he shall be put to death. Shemean Yaakov B'lei Misa. I understand that it steals a blow without death. Tambalei Bar Maki Ish V'Meis Ein Chayim Ela B'Kosham Misa, which teaches us he who strikes a man and dies, that's when he's chayim. Never Maki Ish Kiyaka. And if it would only say Maki Ish and not Ish Kiyaka, you say Ein Chayim B'Shak Ish. I would think only if you strike a man. He can say Isha of Asakatim Minayin. Where do we know that if you strike a woman or a katan, also you're chayiv? This teaches me even a katan or a Isha. Right? Another thing, the Teda would say Maki Isha man, I feel the katan shikawar chayiv. So I would understand that even a man who struck and killed someone, he would be chayiv. That's why it says a man, but not a minor who hits. Right? Now, if it strikes down on any human, it implies, I would think, even a nefel. It means somebody who's a viable infant that has to be at least 30 days old. But one who did not stalk him, Hashem brought it about in his hands. I will make a place for you, which you shall fill. He did not lie and wait for him, and he did not intend to kill the guy. Sada, what does it mean? Sada, lashon arav, an expression of lying and wait. And it says, and you are stalking, I sold to take it. But you talk to them about tzad lashon atzad side. It's impossible to say that tzad is an expression to the one who hunted game. See, this ties in the nufal. Hey, befeil shalah, the shame dover ba tzad. V'zeh shame dover, but still peil shalai tzedu v'zeh peil shalai tzad. Rashi says that it's, however, impossible to say that tzada is an expression that is related to hunting animals, as the following pasuk, the one who hunted game, and to render, and he did not hunt him down, because an expression of hunting beasts, there is no hay in its verb, and the noun related to the side, whereas the noun in this case is stia, and the verb tzeda, but the verb is the one who namely is hunting, it's tzad. So I therefore say that it be interpreted as the Targum, but he who did not stalk him. Now he says Menachem classified in the group of Atzad Sayin, but I disagree with him. Rashi says that Menachem touches is an Azay, but I disagree. He says, like the pasuk says, I shall shoot to the side, and he will speak words against me. Tzada means that he did not look sideways, to find for him some occasions. This interpretation too is questionable. In any case, an expression of stalking. Which means it's ready in his hand. Lashon expression similar to no harm shall be prepared for you. Nor wrong shall be prepared. He is preparing himself against me. Meaning that he is preparing himself to find a pretext against me. So and Hashem brought it about into his hands. Why should this go out from before him? And this David says, from the wicked comes forth wickedness. The proverb of the ancient one is the Teda, which is the Eibishter, which he came before the world. And where did the Torah say from the wicked comes forth wickedness? Well, this refers to Hashem, what it says, Hashem brought it about into his hand. What's the Torah referring to? So, famous thing. Two people. One killed b'shegig, one killed b'mezid. There was no aid to witness what happened. So this one doesn't go to get killed because there's no witnesses. And this one doesn't go to our miklat because there's no witnesses. So what happens? Hashem makes them be in one in. So Hashem makes the person who killed b'mezid is under the ladder. The guy b'shegig climbs up, falls on the guy who killed b'mezid. So now the guy who killed b'mezid, he's dead. And now he falls on the one who killed intentionally. And witnesses testify about him that it was b'shegig. So what does he do? He sentenced the gullus. So this results that the one who killed unintentionally goes to gullus. The one who killed intentionally was killed by the person who fell on him. A man plots deliberately against his friend to slay him. In other words, with cunningness. So even for my mizbeach to kachan lamus, he shall take him to die. Even for my altar, you shall take him to die. What does that mean? Why was it said? Since it says makish, I hear even a guy. So why was it said? Because it says one who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. I understand this to mean a doctor who killed a patient, the Asian or the Beis Din who killed by 48 Malchus, the father who strikes his son, the teacher who disciplines his son, his student, and the unintentional killer. Therefore, there says, but if a man plots deliberately but not unintentional killer, to slay him with cunning, and not the shliach of the Beis Din, not the physician or the one who disciplines his son or his talmid, for although they are intentional striking, they do not do so with cunningness. If he were a kohen and wanted to perform the service, you shall take him to die. Pasuk, almost done. A person who strikes his father or mother shall be put to death. Since we learn that one who strikes one's fellow is chayav to make a monetary compensation, but not die. Therefore, the Torah has to say that a person who strikes his father, he's chayav misa, but it has to be a haka, has to be a blow which causes a wound. Either or. My shumas with what? Mechanic with strangulation. Pasuk Tes Zayin. Whoever kidnaps a man and sells him and is found in his possession, he shall be put to death. So Rashi begin to be Shemachari. Why was it say the vision? Since the Torah says, should a man be found stealing a person with whom from amongst his brothers, meaning so from here I learned that when a person steals another person, where do we know that a man who kidnapped a person is, how do I know that if a woman or let's say androgynous or a person, they are too liable to death? Therefore the Torah says, and whoever kidnaps a man that sells him. Tatus says, whoever kidnaps a man, how do I know one who kidnaps a woman? Therefore, you need both psukim. The one pasuk left out, filled in by the other pasuk. This means the witnesses saw that he kidnapped and sold him. And he kidnapped the man, and the kidnapped man was found in his hand prior to the sale. By strangulation. Anytime the Torah says death, it means without qualifications, it means strangulations. Okay. Rashi, it's in the brackets, but Rashi says that brings from the Gemara that one says, one master believes that we do not compare cursing to striking, and the other one says we do. Pasuk Zayin, Makala v'imay meisumas, one who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Ugasha Makala v'imay leina lamanem. Why does it say? Fishu who emir ish ashikalas avim eliela ish shikalas avim. Now it says that there it says any man who curses his father or his mother surely shall be put to death. From where I know only that if a man curses his father, he should be put to death. But isha shikilas avim, how do I know that if a woman curses her father, she too is liable to death? That's what it says. And one who curses his father or mother is stam. Ben ish, ben isha. So why does it say isha shirikal? It says in order to exclude the minor. Wherever it says his blood is upon him, it means he's be put to death by stoning. The model of all of them is with rocks. They shall stone with them. Their blood is upon them. Regarding the one who curses his father, it says his blood is upon him. If men fight and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he's not died but is confined to his back, says an eye for an eye. From where do we know that if one how do I know that he's chayiv? It says over here. Enough of the Mishpatim, as he says, the he falls into idleness, meaning the illness that prevents him from working. Last pasuk, if he gets up and walks about outside on his support, the guy shall be cleared. He shall give only payment for his idleness, and he shall provide for his cures. With this help, the straight of Venika Amaka, and would enter in your mind that one who did not kill should be killed. Now the Torah teaches us that they imprison him until it becomes apparent whether this one, the victim, will get well. It comes up when the guy gets better, he walks on his support, then the guy who hit him is cleared. But before the victim gets up, the guy who hit him should not be clear. This is the idleness from his work due to his illness. Just had this in the Mishnah, that if he cut off his hand or his foot, we assess payment for his idleness as if he were a watchman of cucumber field. Because even after the recovery from his illness, he's not fit for work that requires a hand or a foot. And he already gave him as payment for his damage the value of his hand or his foot. It says a hand for a hand, a foot for hers, a Rashi for Rabbi, and he shall pay for the physician's fee.